Since the overturning of Roe v. Wade, the pro-life movement has changed, and so has the way we fight for the unborn. Many celebrated and stepped back, thinking the war was over, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Abortion didn't end, it just slipped out of sight. And when no one is watching, injustice thrives. We're here to show you why the battle still rages on and how to stand, speak, and fight back in a post-Roe world. This is the CPC Podcast. All right. Well, what's up, everybody? My name is Chrissy, and on behalf of the Center for Pregnancy Choices metro area, I would just like to say that we are so excited to finally be launching the CPC Podcast. It's been a long time coming. So if you are not familiar with the Center for Pregnancy Choices, we are the largest pregnancy resource nonprofit in the state of Mississippi. So why now? In a world where there is a podcast for everything, have we chosen to jump on this train at this time to communicate our message? Like you heard in the intro, it's a different world post-Roe. The pro-life movement looks different, and so the way that we communicate has to be different too. So before we get into all of that, I wanted to let Erin Kate and Anja introduce themselves. We have our executive director that I'll start with. So Erin Kate, just tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey.
Hi, I'm Erin Kate Good. I'm the executive director here at the CPC Metro. I have been at the CPC for 12 years. I started out as a volunteer, just felt like I needed to start serving the Lord in some way, and I was connected to the CPC. I actually started out as a banquet cleanup crew. That was my first job as a volunteer. Yes. And then I became the assistant to the executive director back then, Barbara Beavers, and then I became the director 8 years ago. And so I have enjoyed every minute, but it has been extremely challenging.
And Anja, what about you?
I am your resident pro-life advocate across the state of Mississippi. I started out as a volunteer also when I was a teenager with CPC, metro area, and Pro-Life Mississippi. And my first job was calling legislators to ask them for their email addresses, which was also hard, especially as a teenager. But since then, I've gotten to know the pregnancy resource ministry leaders across the state and worked with policy advocates. And so I like to be the go-between between policy and resources.
Mm-hmm. And what they're not telling you, because they are humble on top of all of their other good characteristics, is that they are real pillars in the pro-life movement in Mississippi. They have done so much work, over the last 5 years that I've known them, and I feel very cool that I get to call them my friends. So we're just going to have a conversation, and we have a couple of questions just about what the pro-life movement does look like at this point, because I think there is a little bit of confusion. So, Erin Kate, if you could just talk to us about the current reality of what abortion looks like in 2025.
Sure. Most people know that Roe versus Wade was overturned in 2022, and that came out of a law in Mississippi, the Gestational Age Act, that went to the Supreme Court, and then the ruling, the Dobbs decision was made, and so that here in Mississippi, that made abortion illegal. It closed down the Pink House, the last remaining abortion clinic in the state of Mississippi, and made it illegal for abortion pills to be shipped into our state. So we celebrate for sure that Mississippi was really the catalyst for a massive, massive change in the abortion landscape across the nation. But here in Mississippi, women can still get abortions. Women can still access abortions. They can travel to other states, and they are accessing abortion pills online at a very high rate. It's very easy for them to order abortion pills online, and that's what we're really going to dive into today. So in a way, on the one hand, we very much celebrate the fact that abortions are not being performed here in Mississippi at an abortion facility. We're so grateful that that's out of our state. But on the other hand, our pro-life community may not be aware because they don't see it visibly in Jackson. They may not be aware that the abortion crisis still exists and that abortion pills are still coming into our state. And women from Mississippi, of course, can still travel to other states. So abortion in many ways is still legal here in Mississippi for women to have abortions to order them or to go to other states.
Right. And that's something that everybody that I've talked to is surprised at the current situation, because I think I think it was very wishful thinking that when the Pink House closed down, that means everybody in crisis pregnancies is just going to come over to us, you know?
Right.
And that's not what has happened. That's not what we've seen. And so the abortion pill, what you're saying is that these girls are ordering the abortion pill online.
Yes.
Okay. I want to know what the abortion pill is and what it does. Anya, you might know a little bit about that.
Yeah. So there are a couple of pills that are taken. There's two pills that are actually taken for an abortion to take place. The one we talk primarily about today is going to be mifepristone, but there's a dual functionality. Usually people are obtaining these pills online, sometimes through a telemedicine, a doctor in another state, but sometimes through pretty shady websites that are shipping pills from out of the country, sometimes a combination of those two. And part of the reason that this industry thrives is because it is a gray market. It is a black market in some cases, gray being kind of somewhere in between, a hybrid market for these pills. And there is no oversight. And it just so happened that this method of getting the pills coincided with the Dobbs decision. So just as this network and technology started to really kick off is when the Dobbs decision hit. So we saw people move online as the physical clinics started to close. So there's a lot to get into with the pills, but primarily the first pill you take right away, whether you're at home or you're in a clinic, it cuts off the nutrient supply to the baby. So that starves the baby. Then the second pill that you take actually expels the baby, actually causes the abortion to take place. So the silver lining there is that we have a network, including here with CPC Metro and other Mississippi pregnancy centers, that if you take that first pill and you change your mind, there still is an opportunity to do abortion pill reversal, and you have a shot, not a guaranteed shot,
Sure.
but a shot to reverse the effects of that baby losing its nutrient supply before the second pill. But once the second pill is taken, it's a done deal most of the time.
Because the second pill basically induces labor, the
Yes.
natural labor.
Yes. And there are people taking false pills, and so they may think that they've had an abortion and they haven't. But if it's an authentic pill, it will work.
You know, what we heard for a long time, many years even before the overturn, was that, oh, well, if you make abortion illegal, then abortions are still going to take place in the back alley. And it sounds like that the back alley is the internet.
That's right. And really, back alley has always been a misnomer because back alley abortions were just illegal abortions happening in clinics for the most part. And so now the back alley is moving to someone's bathroom, someone's dorm, someone's home, someone's car.
And it just arrives at your doorstep.
It does. And me and Aaron Kate, all of us have seen the packaging, and it's sketchy.
Right. Well, while we're on the subject of the pills, there is a study that was released recently. Could you tell us what the study is, who put this out, and what it's got included in it, so that we can get a little educated on this mifepristone?
Sure. This is a new study that's come out from the Ethics and Public Policy Center, and it is really bringing forward, I think, some shocking information, really exposing that the abortion pills aren't safe. And I'll let Anya go into some just a high level details of what that report is telling us. But we've always known that abortion isn't safe. Want to
Right.
make that clear.
Right.
Abortion's never been safe because it takes the life of a child, and it also harms the woman. We know that from experience, and we
Mhm.
can get into that detail a little bit later. But this is a study that has been done, and it's the biggest, the most comprehensive study that's been done so far on abortion pills and the effects of abortion pills.
And the reason this is important is that this is pulling all of the real world insurance claims from this data set, which is expansive. It's a large sample. It's current 2017 to 2023, about as recent as you can pull data like that. And so it's not based on theory. It's not based
Right.
on a small sample. It's based on a real world, what have people claimed and in their real medical bills,
Mhm.
and what have the medical professionals coded these problems as. So of this data, 10.93%, or 1 in 11, really, a percent of women, 1 in 11 women experience sepsis, infection, hemorrhaging, or another serious adverse event within 45 days following a mifepristone abortion. So, and that's what we've seen.
Mhm.
So the most conservative guess is 1 in 11 women who are taking these pills are having an adverse event, and adverse is clearly defined. If for those of you who want to get into the weeds of the study of what adverse entails, it's serious things like
Right.
sepsis and infection.
Mhm.
Next, the real world rate of serious adverse events following a mifepristone abortion is at least 22 times as high as the summary figure on the drug label. So
Say that again?
it's the real world rate of serious adverse events following mifepristone abortion is at least 22 times as high as the summary figure on the drug label.
So 22 times what they can read on the label.
However, they did their study to get their projections
Mhm.
for the FDA approval under the Biden administration. It's not that in real world terms.
So it's probably way more than that.
22 times as high.
That's scary.
Yeah, it is scary. And with most drugs, say antibiotics for an ear infection, you don't get away with a difference like that from label to real world claims.
So I can order this pill off some website. I don't have to have a telehealth or a doctor prescribe. I can just I can just type in what I want, order it, and it'll come to my door and I can take it. No counseling, no,
No.
I just have the instructions that are on the package.
Yes. And even if you meet with a doctor, legitimate U.S. doctor in another state via telehealth, that doctor never sees you. They never examine
Right.
you. They never give you a sonogram. They never check you for ectopic pregnancy. And they don't get in trouble when something adverse happens, because there are laws. I won't get into the weeds of the policy, but there are laws in many states called shield laws protecting those doctors who prescribe. So if you get a prescription from a doctor in one of those states, you don't have recourse as it stands right now.
Wow.
I just have two more stats, and then I'll put away the numbers. But at least 5.26%, or about 1 in 19 cases, is double the failure rate from the U.S. clinical trials, and 2/3 higher than the combined failure rate from all clinical trials reported on the FDA-approved drug label. So again, this is another instance of the theory and what was put on the label and what was shown to the FDA not matching the real world circumstances. So that leads to the final stat. 13.51% of women, roughly 1 in 7, experience at least one serious adverse event or repeated abortion attempt within 45 days of the first attempt. So this means that combined with the failure rate of the pills and the adverse outcomes, either women are experiencing high rates of life-threatening events, or they are still pregnant, which that's a blessing, but it is very dangerous to think you are not pregnant and you still are. not just
Right.
for the risk of ectopic pregnancy, but also that drives your behaviors, that drives the decisions you make, whether you're pregnant or not.
Right. So basically, we knew that it wasn't safe, but we just didn't know how unsafe that
Yes,
it is.
yes. And there was a lot of fear mongering, ironically, when Dobbs was leading up, and even now, that uh, people who are experiencing miscarriages are going to be lumped into this, that it's going to skew the data, that it's going to put women who need care for a miscarriage at risk, put medical professionals at risk. But first of all, we haven't seen that played out. We haven't
Right.
seen doctors getting arrested for helping women with miscarriages. Pro-life people have miscarriages too.
Right.
I don't know if the media knows that, but also this data does not include miscarriage.
I'm glad that you mentioned that because, I know, unfortunately, more people than I would like to know who have experienced miscarriages, and they struggle because on their medical record it says abortion. I think it says spontaneous abortion, and so I think that's one huge misconception because I mean it does say abortion, but she didn't have an abortion. A miscarriage is not an abortion. I believe she had a DNC.
Right. So we're talking elective abortions.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
But I do think it's kind of a ploy from the enemy to heap guilt and just get in their brains with anything that could make them sympathetic, I think.
Yes. And I think all of us personally know people, supporters, medical professionals, and policy advocates who they themselves have experienced miscarriage,
Mhm.
who advocate for these policies.
Mhm.
So they would not have an interest in harming themselves.
Mhm. So, Erin Kate, could you kind of just speak on abortion is never safe?
Yes, yes. That's this particular study, and we'll probably get into the strategy for why this study right now is so important. I think it's really just again highlighting. We didn't mention this, but over the years, when the abortion pill was first introduced in the United States, there were some more guidelines around it, some more guardrails for women, and you did have to have a medical exam and all that. And over the years, especially with COVID and then with the Dobbs decision, all these things were rolled back, and so pills became more accessible without all
Mm,
these interactions and all these guardrails. So without the medical exam, without the in-person visit, the follow-up care that needs to
right.
happen, even verifying that the pregnancy is in the uterus, all those kinds of things were taken away. Um, but so this abortion became less safe, but it never was safe. Abortion never is safe. And I just feel like that's really important for our pro life community, for us we agree on,
Right.
that when a baby is killed, that is never safe. And we also know that abortion harms women. It's not just the physical harm, but the emotional harm. We have a thriving abortion recovery ministry because our community is hurting from past abortions. And so we wouldn't have an abortion recovery ministry if abortion was just like taking a Tylenol,
If
if
there
you
was
just
nothing to recover
right, if
from.
there was nothing to recover
Right.
from. And so but we know that. We have these women that we serve every day, and they're all around us who are grieving. And also just the fact that abortion is such a taboo thing to talk about, that
Right.
we can't talk about it in the church. We don't tell each other if we've had an abortion, and we keep it a secret. That tells you something's wrong. That tells you there's pain there. That tells you there's guilt there. And that's if it was a healthy thing, it wouldn't be a secret. We wouldn't be ashamed to talk about it. So there's something there. Obviously, it's something done in darkness and done in secret. And those kinds of things always have a bad effect. Does that make sense? So
Yes.
emotionally, we know that abortion harms women and abortion takes the life of an innocent child. So therefore, it is never safe.
That's
And I
right.
just want to make that clear. We're not saying this is an excellent study, and anything we can do to limit the number of abortions that are happening, to regulate abortion, but regulating abortion is not enough.
That's
And I
right.
want to make that clear. We really do want abortion to be unthinkable, that women don't even consider it because it's not safe.
That's right. So let's talk about what we see at the CPC every day. We have a medical
Yes.
clinic arm of our ministry.
Yes.
And so we have a nurse who was a labor and delivery nurse for, I guess,
Many years.
many years. So this is very close to her heart.
Yes.
One thing that she had said on a recent tour that really just got to me was that I believe it's misoprostol, the second pill that induces labor. She said when a woman was 40 weeks pregnant in labor, they would give them a fourth in the delivery room of that pill to induce their labor. And girls with this pill are taking a full 100% dose. And I think that's one of the things. You don't have a professional to counsel you on these things. You just get a pill from anywhere. You don't realize what you're taking. You haven't talked to anybody, and you're not doing your research on how strong these drugs are.
Well, they're on the streets, essentially, like she was talking about. Women are being encouraged to order multiple, like a multiple supply of abortion pills. And so they have extra. They have one for this pregnancy, and then they've got some for the next. And so I know Lee, our nurse manager, medical services manager, has said we are hearing from patients who are getting abortion pills from their friends. Well, y'all know we're not supposed to share your prescription pills, but also, I mean, that if that friend is not prescribing, that friend is not able, we don't know what the packaging, what it looks like after your friend's gotten it. She's passed it to you. So are they following the directions? Are they following the protocols and the proper procedure? What are they get? We don't even know what they're getting. But yeah, it's being prescribed in multiple quantities for multiple pregnancies, which just seems illogical when you think about healthcare and the way that most medicines are managed, and the way that my doctor is very careful that I'm getting a prescription for a limited amount of time for a very specific, especially something as serious as this would be. So just seems to be just wide open the way that these are being handled, I guess, by the medical community.
You can't go take your child for an ear infection, get antibiotics, and say, well, my other kid's probably going to get an ear infection too, or we're probably going to get another ear infection next month. So can I go ahead and get those antibiotics?
Right. In what world is it okay to do that? And so why with a pregnancy is that okay? It seems very desperate from the abortion industry, to stay relevant, to stay alive, to just keep making that money. What I'm hearing is it used to be more tight than it was in the very beginning, but guardrails have been just chipped away. Can either one of you guys shed some light on that? That's crazy to me.
Yes, just like Erin Kate is saying that the who we'll call the enemy on this issue is thriving in isolation, keeping women isolated literally in their homes, but also emotionally, not seeking recovery, not seeking help, not seeking medical counsel directly, but also through confusion. So maybe 12 years ago, I remember when Plan B became over the counter, which is often confused with the morning after pill. Now sometimes people are calling the morning after pill or Plan B. They're confusing it and muddying the waters with that's the abortion pill, which now sometimes is called Plan C. So Plan A, I suppose, in the marketing plan is don't get pregnant. Plan B is morning after pill, which is now over the counter, which happened 12 years ago. It used to be that you had to visit a doctor for that as well. And then Plan C is your abortion pills. So that many listeners who are supporters of CPC probably don't know that. But when you see Plan B on the counter, no big deal. And then you go online and you can get, quote unquote, Plan C, your 2 abortion pills. It starts to seem like just not a big deal. And that's been reflected in policy through the attitudes of who is in charge of policy, through the bureaucrats that are in charge of the FDA. And things have shifted. And so that is why the timing of this study is really important, because we have an opportunity here to shed light on the failures of the last at least 12 years.
And I can remember y'all like, 5 years ago or so when abortion pills really kind of came on, like that started to be the thing that we were noticing the most that people wanted. I can remember looking, I would search online to see what competitors, how they were promoting abortion pills. And literally one abortion facility, their whole like website was, it was tablets filled with sprinkles and glitter and sprinkles, like the sprinkles you put on a cupcake and glitter. And it said, "We have abortion pills." And so it was like glitter and sprinkles. And that, I mean, that's how they were selling it. That's how it was like so much fun to get these. And this was going to be like, have this happy moment and move on with your life. And all that is to say that that was when it's kind of being pushed. It was pushed as easy. It was pushed as easy, and it's still being pushed as easy. And so they're asking for it. Most women are asking for abortion pills because they think it's going to be easy. And so that is definitely the most sought after, also because having to have surgery now in Mississippi, they'd have to travel to another state. So I would say 2/3 of our clients, at least, is what the number that I was given, are asking for abortion pills because they think it's easy. And then also they said they are most often being told that it is comparable to having your period. So just the experience of having, the baby starved of its nutrients and expelled from your body is similar to your menstrual cycle. Well, this study is just showing that that's not always the case, but that's what they're being told. And we are hearing, we're hearing a lot of the nausea, cramping, vomiting, diarrhea kind of, um,
Side effects.
side effects from it. But those are really the main things that I think it's just important for people to know that it's so prevalent. That's what they want. And because it's being marketed as a quick fix.
A number I wanted to highlight, if a woman who is ever considering abortion ever listens to this, I think what Erin Kate is saying is so important about the being told that it's going to be like a period. Imagine being told that it's going to be like maybe even a very serious period, right?
Right.
A very hard one. But then what if you were told before you took the pills, hey, but 1 in 11 women who take this pill actually have serious bleeding, need an ER visit,
Right.
risk sepsis.
I would think
infection.
anybody would think twice. At least give it more consideration than I'm taking a Tylenol today to make my headache go away.
I'm taking a Tylenol. I might have to throw on some feminine products before I leave the house. Right. Versus, by the way, just before you swallow that, 1 in 11 women end up in the ER with infection, sepsis, serious bleeding.
Yeah, and what I really loved about this study is that it was very truthful. It was very truth-telling. We got what's really going on and then what was marketed. And I think that the marketing plays on the abortion industry, it's just so cunning, and so sly. And I think that that's part of the reason that the industry has done better than any of us would have hoped that it would have, because it is marketed and it is downplayed. The side effects aren't that bad. Most people who have abortions just get over it pretty quick. It's not, I don't know what you're so upset about, but I'd like to talk about the truth. I'd like to talk about the consequences of those actions. And one of the things that really surprised me about the CPC is the post-abortive recovery ministry arm that we have, and the ages of the women that are involved in that ministry. Erin Kate, can you tell us about that?
Sure. Well, y'all know Roe versus Wade came into law in 1973, and just personally, I'll tell y'all that was the year my parents got married. I'm 45. Everybody knows now I'm 45. My parents got married in 1973. That was the year that abortions became, Roe versus Wade became the law of the land, and so women in that generation, in the 70s, began to get abortions because it was legal. And I think a lot of, moms would take their daughters because they said, well, If it's legal for the doctor to perform it, it must be safe. It must be okay. And so, what we see overwhelmingly at the CPC is women who are in these are grandmothers now. Women in their 60s and 70s who have been living in guilt and shame for 30 or 40, 45 years from this past abortion. And so a lot of people think, I don't know, sometimes we just kind of have an us and them. If we don't have a personal abortion experience or story or know anybody, we think this is another group of people. But honestly, most of our supporters, our majority of our support and people who are really involved in this issue are in their over 50. And also, that is the overwhelming group of people who are, that is where a lot of women who experience abortion and harm from abortion, that's that generation. It's a way, way, way smaller number now. People do take a lot longer. Just to clarify, like, we do offer abortion recovery support to our patients who come in who are, mostly in their 20s, who may have had an abortion or may choose abortion. We want to offer them abortion recovery support, but it often takes many, many years for somebody to seek out healing and support from that. But overwhelmingly, what we see is women in their 60s and even in their 70s, and we've even talked to women in their 80s who had abortions many, many years ago and have for years and years, and they've seen not only an impact, in their thinking about themselves, what they think about themselves, the thoughts. They're not able to go a day without thinking about that child that they aborted. But it also affects their relationships or marriages. It affects the way they're able to love and care for others when they have guilt and shame about the way that they, treated that one child during that time. And so we just see overwhelmingly that's the age group. And I think that is something that usually shocks people, because that also tells you probably do know somebody.
That's right.
You probably do know somebody who's had an abortion in your parents' generation, your around you, especially in the church. It's very, very common. It's just that we don't talk about it.
Right. And I think correct me if I'm wrong, but the statistic on that is for 45 and under, it's 1 in 4 women that have experienced abortion. But 45 and older is 1 in 3.
That's what I've heard. I've heard a lot of different statistics over the years, but that I will definitely say that what I've seen, and I've only been a CPC for 12 years, but what I've seen overwhelmingly is that it is more in the older than in the younger.
Right. And I guess I just wouldn't have expected that. I would have thought that it would have been people who come in, just a few months later, if they've had time to process, that are, around our age, our generation, who are dealing with regret. But that's not the reality. What's happening is that these women are pushing it down and suppressing it and trying to ignore it, and it is just infiltrating every part of their lives.
Right. And the thing that I think is important now, though, is we're looking at these pills. So that was one day. That was back when you had to go to a doctor. For the most part, to get an abortion. There was a doctor involved. There was the receptionist. There was whoever scheduled the appointment. There was somebody who took you there. There were all these points of contacts and all these people possibly involved in that decision and in that. Now, like we were talking about earlier, they are completely isolated. And that's what the enemy absolutely loves to do. That's what the abortion industry loves to do, is to isolate women in their fear. And so now there can be no human interaction to have an abortion. And so these women are making this decision. And the thought, I can imagine, is after they've had the abortion, like, imagine the guilt of knowing that you never talked to anyone.
Right.
You didn't ask. You didn't reach out. No one else had a chance to even say, are you sure this is the right decision? Are you sure this is, or have you talked to your parents? Have you, any of these questions that we ask at the CPC? That's why it's so important what we do. But no stop along the way. Just order the pill, take it, and you are completely alone. And so we don't even know what that's going to look like years down the road for these women who don't have any interaction at all. But we can imagine.
But if you think about it, that is the tactic of an abuser,
Absolutely.
right?
Yes.
That's what abusers do to victims. They get them alone,
That's right.
right? If you tell anybody, something horrible is going to
Mhm.
happen, you know? And so now I think what we're talking about with the older ladies, that was a very different situation. And now
Mhm.
it's even worse, I feel like,
Yeah.
because you're seeing a whole different generation about to be raised up and they're making this decision. They don't have anybody in their corner to tell them the truth or to help them. And so imagine how much more they could suppress that and carry that for decades. And these older ladies are coming to us and saying, we don't want this
Right.
for these girls, you know?
Right.
They're saying we wish somebody was on the sidewalk the day, praying the day that we got there. We wish somebody had noticed. We wish the friend had not driven us to the clinic and instead had asked how to help. Things that come to them in retrospect. But I think about the emotional and spiritual fallout that will come when the veil is lifted and we see how much propaganda, how much of the information was lies
Right.
given to the women online. They're going to realize that they were not given informed consent. This whole operation is built on the premise that there is consent. But how can there be informed consent when, if you Google this issue, the top 10 articles have full blown lies at the very top? Even when I was just Googling some oppositional articles in preparation for our discussion, I was seeing over and over pro-lifers say these pills cause ectopic pregnancies.
Right.
That's a lie. These pills don't cause ectopic pregnancies. Yeah, no one's saying that they do. The risk is thinking you're not pregnant, but you actually have an underlying ectopic pregnancy. How can you make an informed decision? How can you use your free will to make a choice, even if you're a part of a church and you are trying to use spiritual discretion, if you have wrong information?
Right. What do you tell somebody who truly is trying to do their own research when the research is skewed?
I think if somebody's listening to this or listening to this and talking to a friend, I think you do point them to this study, depending on what their interests are. Do they like to read numbers? Do they like to look at graphs? But I also think there are a lot of resources out there, like Charlotte Lozier Institute, that have articles condensed down with bullet points. I think read what the opposition has to say, but then bring your questions to the CPC. It's free to go. It's not, you don't have to bring insurance. You don't have to put your social security number on
Right.
anything. It's totally confidential. You come in, it's a private entrance. You talk to somebody, you lay out your concerns, and you weigh the information yourself. No one's going to force you to make the choice either direction. They're going to support you in the ways Aaron Kate's mentioning.
Right. And they go over your options with you, do they not?
That's
So there
right.
are three options.
right.
So can you speak on that?
Sure, absolutely. My favorite part about what we do is that we don't profit
Right.
from any decision that you make. Obviously, the abortion industry, when they're telling you all these things about it's, glitter and sunshine and it's like a period, is, and literally, I don't think they say glitter and sunshine, but that's
I
what
get
it
your
looks
point.
like. Yeah. So,
Mhm.
but we aren't going to profit. So you can make whatever decision you are going to make, and we don't make money. We don't get paid off of decisions that you make. And so I think that's really, really, really important. Think about the source of the information. Are they selling you something? We're not. And so at the CPC, we do. We give every woman information. They have three choices. They have to carry to term, that to have their baby. They have the option, and once they have their baby, to place for adoption, make an adoption plan, and we can help them get resources and support if they want to make that decision. And then they have the option to have an abortion, and we, our medical professionals, will walk through that information and let them know about the pills and let them know about a surgical abortion. So we don't perform abortions. We don't refer for abortions. We're not going to walk through how they're going to get that if that's what they choose, but we'll definitely help them understand. And the main thing to me is that we are really comprehensive in that if a woman is considering abortion, we're actually going to give her a sonogram. So we're going to
Right.
say, hey, what would that look like for you? we need to see if that baby actually has a heartbeat. You can have a positive pregnancy test and your baby doesn't have a heartbeat. That means you don't need, that abortion's not going to be an option for you, that your baby's already not living. But that you also want to see how far along you are. That determines what kind
Right.
of abortion procedure you might have, and then also to make sure that it's not ectopic. I wanted to let y'all know I asked in our clinic over the last 60 abortion determined patients that we had, women who came in saying, "I want to have an abortion." Out of those 60, one of those did have an ectopic pregnancy. So if she had just bypassed us and bypassed any human interaction, any medical examination, and had an abortion, um, she may have missed that ectopic pregnancy. And so we're able to detect that early, those ectopics as well, which is really important. So
Right.
we're able anyway to give a mind, body, spirit. We're going to not only just do that medical exam, but we're also going to talk to her about, it's just critical thinking,
Mhm.
and a woman should have informed consent and be able to think critically through a decision like this. They should. It's not taking a Tylenol, so they should. It is going to end the life of a child and impact their life.
Yes.
So they need to think
Yeah.
critically through it. So we're going to sit down with them and just allow them to process the decision, allow them to take that time in a safe space, a quiet space to say, these are my thoughts. These
Right.
are the things that I'm thinking. These are the things I know about abortion. These are things I know about the resources available. These are the people in my life who are speaking into this. And we can talk to them about, if circumstances were different, what would you do? And how can we help you get to a decision that you really feel good about, and also weighing in their spiritual beliefs. Um, Often a woman is conflicted with her spiritual beliefs. She knows murder is wrong. She knows
Right.
taking the life of an innocent child is wrong, but she doesn't see another option. And we're
Mm.
able to say, let's think about that. If this is what you truly believe, how are you going to feel tomorrow? How are you going to feel in 6 months? How are you going to feel 6 years down the road if you went against your spiritual belief? Let her think through that, at least to have a
Right.
chance to think through that. Um, so the quick and easy does not allow her that, and I think every woman deserves to have somebody who they can trust to just process through without guilt and shame.
And there's that feminist for life quote that comes to mind, that a woman doesn't want an abortion in the way that she wants an ice cream cone. She wants it in a way that a bear wants to gnaw off its leg in a trap.
That's strong. And I think ultimately, God changes hearts.
That's right.
Some of the I knew one in particular, my cousin, she was as pro choice as they came. I remember a Facebook back and forth that we had years ago. It was about 10 years ago now. It was respectful, but she and I got very close within the last few years of um, just our life. And she came to know the Lord, and she got saved. And of course, we're still on the phone all the time. And she's like, "Yeah, I'm pro-choice. I'm always going to be pro-choice, but I do love Jesus and all He's done for me." And I'm sitting here thinking, "Okay, Lord, sanctification takes time, And she texted me one day, and she said, "I need to talk to you about this abortion thing." And I got my Bible. I was talking to my husband like, "Okay, how do I deal with this?" I had a whole sermon ready, y'all. And she called me and she said, "God spoke to me through his word, and I can't be pro-choice anymore." I was like, "Close." I had a whole thing prepared. It was going to be great, ready for it. But God didn't need me. His word is enough, and He uses His word. So I think that one of the best things about what we do is we pray over, all
Well,
of.
and it sounds like he actually did use you, though, because there are conversations like the one we're having or the ones you were having for years that lead to a spiritual moment for many people.
It just makes me so hopeful. Um, there is hope and there is forgiveness, and God can change hearts. So, final thoughts. Let's talk to the Christian, okay, the church. people like me who are just ready to, give that sermon to our pro-choice friends, our friends that will, just up and down say how pro-choice they are and how they don't really hear these numbers in this study because they're all about women's reproductive rights, right? Let's talk to the church, to our brothers and sisters in Christ. I think about how now is not the time to sit back and celebrate the end of Roe. It was a battle that was won, but the whole war still continues.
That's right. It's time to speak up. It's time to speak out. It's time to tell the truth, speak the truth in love. That's what we always want to speak the truth in love. Being in this movement, being in in a pregnancy center, we do have we feel like sometimes we have this insider knowledge, and
Right.
we know so much. And so we're able to be the ones who can really speak out. Well, we're doing this podcast so that you can too. We need our whole church community to help us build a culture of life. We need us talking to our daughters, to our sons, to our friends about this issue. Just share the podcast, tell the story about, the truth versus lies, light versus darkness. I mean, this is a great example of how the enemy has pushed something into darkness. They have isolated this woman and held her in hopes that she's going to make this decision in complete darkness. Well, what if she heard from her friend at school or, her pastor or her youth director or her, anybody about another way, about the CPC,
Right.
about life and death, the value of life. There's just so many ways. So we really want to equip our church to be courageous. I just want to remind everyone that God gives us courage. He gives us power through Jesus, and we have that. And if we're speaking the truth, then he's going to empower us and going to equip us to do that. And so don't sit back and let this be something just for the CPC folks to do
Right.
or the educated on this to do. It's not, you don't have to really absorb all this about the study. It's just get curious about it, about understanding what this abortion pill really looks like. Understand that it's coming through the mail. It's not something we're going to see. We're not
Right.
going to see. It's not a pink house in our neighborhood anymore. But it's still coming in. And so we can't be silent. The enemy loves it when the church is silent. I want to encourage our church community here is so strong, and we are so incredibly grateful for the way that our brothers and sisters in Christ come alongside of our ministry, and we are in this together. And we're just asking y'all just to start to learn about it. Also, to share about our abortion recovery ministry. You don't know who is sitting next to you. I'm telling you, it may be your grandmother. It may be a 20 and 30-year-old. We're not saying that those women aren't seeking abortion or healing as well. It's just that we just want to remind people in the church that it is an older generation that you may not be thinking about, but it's certainly all around us. And even our abortion recovery support is free and it's confidential. And that's really important for y'all to know. A woman who's had an abortion in her past does not want everyone to know.
Right.
And so she's probably not going to tell you. You have to tell her. You have to tell her that that's available and let her know that it's confidential. And you may not know that who you're talking to. So you got to tell everybody is what I say.
Right.
But I really just want y'all to be encouraged just to speak out and to get educated on the abortion pill, what's going on, and just know that the word of mouth speaking, just talking about it, just having a conversation with your friends about it, may be the thing that saves a life.
Right. We never
Two
know.
lives. Yes.
We never know.
Right.
Anja, final thoughts.
Yeah, so the happy outcome so far of this study is that the FDA has announced, RFK Jr. has announced that they are going to do a complete review of this drug. We need to do another once over on what these effects are. So that is good news, but that doesn't mean don't lay on the pressure. I saw Americans United for Life has done over 6,000 messages to HHS and the congressman in charge of this review. Do that if that's what you're so called to do. But as the church, like you said, we never have, and we never will just wait on the government, just wait on a policy.
Right.
We have to act now. And so my encouragement would be to anyone listening to this is to get involved with CPC metro area, whether that's financially or with time, or just call and ask what is needed. They have a list ready. I guarantee it. They'll get creative with you. A pastor I really admire once said, hey, everyone criticizes Peter for losing faith as he stepped out onto the water, but at least he stepped out. Get off that boat.
That'll preach. That'll preach. Well, I think that my final thought is that it all goes back down to what is the truth. I don't understand all these studies. I don't know all the charts and the numbers and everything. But I do know that it's a human being in the womb, and people are important to God, so they should be important to us too. I learned about the CPC 5 years ago because the abortion issue was heavy on my heart, and I just could not look away. I didn't want willful ignorance anymore. I didn't know because I didn't want to know, did not fly anymore. The CPC was the only name that I knew that was on the ground doing something about it. So that's when I joined up. So I would echo what you said, Anja. I would encourage anybody who doesn't know where to start, come see us at the CPC. I guarantee you we have a spot for you. So that's going to be a wrap for today. We would like to thank Daniel at Audio Alchemy Productions for his studio and time and immense patience with us. So if you want to come join us at the CPC, come on in and then follow us on social media if you want to find out more. Bye, guys.
Bye.